Hey Ty, what's up?
Oh, I just had a couple of questions. I'm trying to get in with the general manager at an auction, and I've got some questions about this guy. Do you think you could have time to maybe meet me at the gate?
I'm Rich Levene, and this is Meet Me at the Gate, where we're not just talking theory, we're tackling real world problems head on, driving solutions that supercharge productivity and team dynamics. Every episode is a journey towards improvement, empowering you, the manager, to lead with innovation and confidence. Join us to transform everyday roadblocks into highways for success. Not long ago, we did a podcast with Tory, and we talked about trust and building trust and how auctions can build trust. And then we get done with the podcast, and Tory and I are texting back and forth, and Tory says, "Hey, but trust is a two-way street. You talk about this all the time. How do vendors, how do sellers, how do customers build trust with the auction?" So tonight, I'm actually going to be in the rider's seat, and Tory and Ty, you guys are in the driver's seat. You guys are both customers, vendors, slash whatever. I'm the auction guy. You're the other people. So tell me, from your perspective, what is it?
I know, because Ty, what do you do again?
Yeah, what do you do, Ty?
Transport
And from your
automobiles.
perspective,
I
so you move
transport
vehicles.
from dealers to auctions and from auctions to dealers. That's the main gig.
So let's reverse this deal. So I've explained a million times what my philosophy is on trust. How to build trust. You're an auction manager. Let's build trust. You follow CAT. You do the 3 steps. From your perspective, transporter, how do you build trust with the auction? How do you get the auction to say, "Hey, I'm Ty, the transportation guy. I want your cars"?
It typically takes a while, and this is what I call long game. So one of the reasons that I exist is to try to help smaller transport companies establish a client base versus a load board. So in a long game like that, you don't just walk into an auction, the transportation department, the general manager, and say, "I'm the transport guy. Give me your cars." They'll laugh at you, maybe take your card, but you'll go away. It's important to understand that you just don't walk in and people say, "Oh, great, I'm glad. Where have you been my whole life?" It starts with the relationship. I'm going to go try to establish a long-term relationship with, say, an auction. One of the direct ways I'm going to go is the absolute opposite. I'm going to go to the dealer. I'm going to make friends with a dealer who's already has an established relationship with an auction, especially an auction sales rep. That's usually the easiest way in the door. If you don't have that as an option, what I do is I say I'm a transport guy, and it's very important to be very clear, very defined. Where do you go? What do you do? And what are your rates? Because auctions tend to get the majority of your vehicles come from a certain location. Is that fair?
Yes.
So that's what in transportation we call a lane. So as long as I'm clear as to who I am and what I do, the first opportunity that you give me to do work for you, I'm going to communicate properly, which is thank you for the job, the assignment. And then I'm going to say, you might even tell me, I need these here in 2 days. And then I'll say, okay, I'll have them for you in 2 days. Now, the important thing for anybody in this conversation is communication throughout the process. If it's a text, an email, a quick phone call, I'm on my way. I should be there at 2 o'clock to pick up the vehicles. Okay, great. Thanks. I don't need to talk to you about that. Okay, I'm on my way back. They should be there at 3 o'clock today. I'm going to check them in and I'll send you an invoice when I'm done. Establishing trust in a service as a service provider, a vendor for an auction or a dealer. The number one thing, in my opinion, is to build the trust that I think we're talking about is communication and good communication. And part of that good communication is listening, because if you're paying attention to what the auction or the dealer tells you, they'll be giving you plenty of clues as to what they want and what they expect. When I say communication, I don't mean you picking up the phone and me, Ty, picking up the phone, transport guy, calling you and telling you these are all these things. What I also mean by communication is pay a very, very close attention to what Rich is saying and to what Tori's saying.
So would you say, Ty, having those clear, defined expectations definitely help build that trust?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's important too from a service provider, a vendor. If Tori, if you say, Ty, I've got 75 cars over here at this location, I need them picked up and I need them to go to this auction and I need it done by this amount of time. Okay, so when you give me an assignment like that or a job like that, you told me where they were, you told me what they were, I got a list, and you told me when you wanted that done. So in my opinion, it's my job. If anything doesn't add up or match or line with what you told me you want, it's very important for me to be the first one to call you and tell you we're off just a little bit by this is what happened, but we're still going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, off a little bit. So let's unpack this. Let's back up. Right after you transport, you said you go and talk to somebody who already has built up trust with somebody else.
Yeah, I
So
do.
if I'm a new manager at an auction or a new manager in transportation, whatever remarketing industry, right there's like hack number one. If you want to use these new terms, right? What's the hack? Go find somebody else who's done it, who's built up the trust, and get in with them. Is that fair?
Yes, very fair.
So, Tori, from your perspective, because I think this relates to selling cars. You're going to go to an auction. What do you look for at an auction when you want to sell cars?
First thing I look for is how much do the buyers trust that auction? Because let's be honest, that those are the ones that kind of set the precedent for that auction. So if there's a strong buyer base and they trust the auction and they know that they can trust the product that the auction is presenting, that's huge as a seller, because to me, the more they trust it, at the end of the day, the more they're going to spend, but the more they are going to be attracted to your inventory.
Say that first part again, the buyers.
Just in my, time in the auction industry, I can't tell you how many times I hear, I'll never go to that auction because they, screwed me for so-and-so, or I don't trust them because they buried me in a car for so-and-so. But it's the ones that say, hey, I only buy from this auction because of X, Y, and Z. So that lets me know that the auction is willing to build the trust in our product, the company I work for, to present to the buyers in basically a trustworthy manner. Like, hey, we only sell, or we're only going to present these cars that build trust in the auction, build trust in the name. Buyers know what they're buying. They feel like they know exactly what they're getting. We're not trying to hide anything. So perfect example today, I was out there walking my lane. Buyer comes up to me and said, hey, this thing's a silver certified unit, yet it has engine noise on the CR. And I was like, I don't certify stuff that has any type of mechanical conditions. And, certification is like one of the top things you can do on a car. And he's like, well, it says there's engine noise on it. I said, show me on the CR. And so he pulls up the CR. He's like, oh, it's not there. And I was like, okay. I was like, so why do you think I would certify something with engine noise? And he's like, well, other auctions do it. And I was like, do you think this auction would do that? Well, no. I'm like, okay, so that's why I'm here, because I trust this auction to inspect the cars right, to present them accordingly so the buyers know what they're buying. And to me, that means more than anything, because they are doing what's right by the buyer, they're doing what's right by the seller, and they're doing right by the client that we represent.
New story to me, but let's go back and unpack that. So did we write a CR and put engine noise? Probably. Absolutely. But here's where it comes into. We talk about the four values I was talking about, right? Ty, the trust, hope, humility, and empathy. All right. So if in this instance the customer, Tory, picks up the phone and calls and say, hey, are you sure that has engine noise? If I'm not humble and I don't care about Tory and not being empathetic, I have no trust in Tory, and then I'm hopeless, I'm going to say, well, heck yeah, it does. But it takes, if you put those values into place that we use and say, you know what? He might be right. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I was hearing something. Oh, yeah, you're right. This doesn't have an engine noise. It has something else. So that's how we start building up that trust. We go back to the value system. We know we're human beings. We're not perfect. We're not AI technology that says, oh, that noise pattern I heard is definitely engine noise. So we start building up that trust factor.
Well, it's funny you say that, Tori and Rich, because today I was at an auction and ran into an old guy I'd transport cars for. How you been? How's it going? Great. Haven't seen you here in a while. Yeah, I haven't been here in a while either. How come you haven't been here a while? Well, have you ever tried to arbitrate a car here? That was exactly what he said.
Well, let's go back to the podcast we did earlier in the year when we had Chris Donnelly on. You kept pressing Chris, have you ever been to an auction where they didn't treat you right? And he's like, no, everybody's our tribute. And then you finally kept asking the question. He goes, oh, yeah, there was this one time I was at this auction and I bought a car and they wouldn't take it back. And it had, you remember that? He said it had all this bad stuff. Do you think Chris is ever going to go back to that sale again? We could dial him up.
When Tori was talking, I was thinking, wait a minute. Okay, so it's not how many dealers showed up physically and online. That's not your number one criteria, if I'm hearing you right, which I think is fascinating. And I love to hear that, by the way, because it speaks volumes to specific auctions that are all about the numbers. And I feel there's a big
$2 billion.
shift. Say what?
$2 billion.
Or more. Or
If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't.
it may not be public. I don't know. You're killing me.
But
Oh
it's
wow.
kind of like what you said. It's kind of like in Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you build that culture and you build that reputation, word spreads quickly in this industry. And so, Rich and I, we talk, probably a couple times a week. And it always comes down to like, hey, they've done the hardest part. They created the culture they need. Everything else will fall into place. Just got to get the right people in the right place, and everything else will kind of happen as it should.
Well, and I feel it like I know you know this story. I tell Rich too a lot, but I'm usually at about 4 to 5 auctions a week, and I don't have to be there. That's just I love auctions. I love dealers. I love transportation. I love all of it. And each time I go, it's a different experience because of not just logistics and location, people, community, different things like that. And you'll bump into the same guys that you saw 200 miles away. But at the same time, each one has its own, I don't know, what's the word we need for that, Rich? Its own character, its own
Identity.
identity. There you go. And but then there's other ones. Where I'm going with this is I really there's a real sense I feel boots on the ground guy that people are really interested in getting back to the physical auction and trying to do business the right way. I mean, and it's almost like there's a yearning, like there's this hunger for can we just do business like we know how to do business? Does anybody else see that?
Let's tie human behavior into this, because I love talking behavioral science and being a nerd.
Yeah.
So human beings are tribal by nature, and the whole premise behind why humans get together is because they want social interaction with other human beings. And then the tribal part comes in from they want to find people that are like them or can associate with them or they can understand what they are. So you build an auto auction, you start bringing all these people together, and they all have something in common. They're all buying cars, selling cars, whatever. And then we take it one step farther, and this is where we go into dignity leadership. What I talk about is what do you want, Ty? Tori, what do you want? What does the buyer want? What does the seller want? What does everybody else want? At the end of the day, everybody just wants to be treated with respect. They want to be felt honored, important, and like they're a valued human being. In my book, that's dignity. So now you start doing that, and that's how we're building this culture. It's like, look, we want you to want to be at our sale. I don't want you to have to be there because you feel like it's an obligation. That's the number side. Hey, you need to buy 50 cars this week. And if you haven't bought enough, well, then if you're the buyer, you're like, well, I don't want to go there. But now we flip the script and we say, hey, you know what? You need to have 50 cars by the end of the week. The guy goes, you know what? I lock Houston. I'm going to go there and I'm going to start my week on Wednesday. I'm going to see how many I get. Hey, I got 20 cars today. I got 30 to get in the next 2 days. It's a completely different scenario now when you talk about somebody wanting to be there versus somebody having to be.
Well, Tori, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, it's like I tell Rich every time when you walk into his front doors, you feel the culture hit you in the face in a good way. And, I kind of like you, Ty, I visit auctions all the time. You know the good ones from the bad ones in a matter of seconds as soon as you open the doors. And it plays, a huge part when buyers want to be there, when reps want to be there. It's just a completely different atmosphere when it's a matter of wanting to be there rather than having to be there. But I did have a question for Rich, because Rich has been in this industry longer than I've been alive. Let's be honest.
That's not true. That is not true. I learned how to play pickleball in 1985.
Whoa.
Kindergarten, close enough.
Okay, it was middle school.
So you dealt with probably different reps of different everything. So how, as a rep, can you build trust in your product, and how can you use the auction to build trust in your product?
So first things being first, just actually treat me like a human being. I'm not perfect. I'm not a robot. I'm not going to be able to replicate the same thing day after day after day as if I was a manufacturing machine. And then from there, it's you show me respect, I show you respect. Trust is a two-way street. If you give trust, you'll receive trust. So the first thing we try to do is build up trust with other people. When you have the right clientele, the right client, they try to do the same thing in return. And they're like instantly going to come back and say, hey, I'm trusting you with my cars. I want you to sell my cars. And the key difference is somebody that's trustworthy cares more about me than they do about products, the plans, the processes, or the process. If you walk in and say, I need you to get more money for my car. I need you to fix more cars. I need you to be more productive. I need you to have a better process. You've already lost everybody because now you've told me you don't care about me as an individual. All you care about is you, yourself. You're egotistical. You're breaking down all of our values that we have. You don't trust me because you think your process is better and that's how we're going to do it. You're not empathetic because you believe your way is the only way is the right way. And you're not being humble because you got an ego because you think you're the best. And the last one's hope. Now you've crushed my hope. If you don't give me trust, you're not empathetic with me, and you're not being humble, guess what? I have no hope in you. I have no hope that I can even do your job fairly. So that's how I break it down. I keep going back to the values.
So you told me how not to do it.
You're doing it wrong.
Okay, I'm doing it wrong.
So here's how do you do it right? Is that your question?
Yeah. And if you let's say you have a new buyer that comes, a new seller that comes into your auction, says, "Hey, Rich, I am Jim with Jimmy J Remarketing. This is my first time. How do I build trust in my product? How can you help me?"
All right, Ty, it's a softball.
That was a lot. Yeah, knock that one up. It's called CAT.
Cat.
Consistency, accuracy, and transparency.
Absolutely.
So Rich can finish that for you, but I think you're onto something here, Tory. I think it's as a seller, and see, this is let's get into the ditch for a minute. I like the dirt. How many times, Rich, have you had in your auction life some big dude come in and say, "I'm going to run 1,000 cars a month, and I want this selfie, I want this recon, I want this, and I want that, and you better give it to me because I'm running this many cars." Does that happen?
Absolutely, it happens more times than I have
Right.
fingers.
So this is what I love. The next part of this is generally, and tell me if I'm wrong, if that 1,000 cars a month, which I know that's an extreme number, so whatever, I'm sorry, but you guys get to.
Let's go to
Okay,
100.
100. I'm going to sell 100 cars a month at your auction. I want this lane. I want these run numbers. And I definitely want to be in front of that guy. You better make sure I'm damn sure I'm not behind that guy. I want my cars in front of that guy because I'm giving you 100 a month. So give me a good selfie, give me a good lane, and make sure you have plenty of buyers there. Get all the money, or else I'm taking my cars somewhere else. Get that done now. I want it in paper by the end of the day. Okay, so then you finally make the guy happy. You finally give him what he wants. I don't know if you guys sign a contract for 3 months, 6 months, a year, but then this guy turns around 2 months. He starts sending 75 cars. Then he starts sending 50. Then he's what happened to this guy? And he still acts like he's God. You ever see that?
He's only done 2 of the 3 pieces. He's only done one. I'm sorry. He's only done one of the 3 pieces. He's missing 2 pieces. He's consistent. I'm going to sell 20 cars, 25 cars every week. Because if 100 cars a month, let's use a 4-week month. I'm going to sell 25 cars every month. Okay, you're being consistent. Number 1, cool. You're off to a great start. Number 2, accuracy. Sometimes accuracy might be another word you could use as integrity, but CIT doesn't sound near as cool as CAT, cat. Okay, so accuracy, what does that mean? Accuracy means that you're going to show up on the block and you're going to have a title with you, and you're going to be accurate in your floor pricing. You're going to be accurate with your valuations on the car. You know what the car is worth in the wholesale marketplace. Okay, so now if you're consistent and you're accurate, the last one's being transparent. Why did you bring me that car? Is it an aged inventory? Is it damaged beyond the repairs that you don't want to spend on it? Does it have structure? Does it have a title problem? What is the issue? Why did you bring me that car? Oh, it's a stay around brown. I can't sell brown cars on my lot. The guys just don't. Now, if you do those 3 things, you've got it. But time and time again, the guys will come in, and then I'm just going to say it, a new manager or a rookie or somebody that doesn't have experience will say, oh yeah, 25 cars a week, that's great. They're doing the math in their head. They're all about the numbers. They miss the other two pieces. If you don't have all three, you're never going to be successful.
Did that answer your question, Tory?
Oh, sorry. Just kidding. That was the mic drop. Just kidding.
Absolutely. Well, and it's so funny, like Ty, like when you talk about, coming in and saying, hey, I need this placement, I want to be here. So, I run at a bunch of auctions. I probably run in 6 different spots because I tell the auction, tell me where you think is best for me. Some auctions are like, hey, buyers are late. Let's start you. We don't want to kick you off because they will miss your first couple of cars. Let's, run 10, 20 in front of you. Some are like, hey, your best spot's in the back because that's where, buyers, they come super late, or that's, they wait for your inventory till the end. So to me, it's the auctions, and majority of the time, auctions know where the money is and they know where your product will do best. So it comes back to building that trust and trusting the auctions. It's their facility. Nobody knows it better than them. Nobody knows their buyers better than them. So kind of trusting the auction to put you in that best place, I think goes a long way also from the selling side.
So let's break that down. We're not the world's largest auction. Everybody should know this by now. But we've clearly got 3 types of customers at our facility, and we clearly have 3 lanes. Dealer lane, fleet lane, and I'm talking white metal fleet return type stuff. Mechanics, trucks, HVAC vans, cable vans, whatever you want to call them. Okay, that's our fleet lane. And then we have we'll just call it repo lane or small bank lane. So what we've done is within the story, we've built up CAT, right? Consistency, accuracy, transparency. Lane 1 right here, dealer cars. Every week it's the same thing. Lane 2 is the same thing. Lane 3 is the same thing. Accuracy. This is where we start to figure out how we're going to stack our lane. Who's going to run first in this lane? It's really simple for me. Who's going to be on the block? Who's going to bring a title? And who's going to say yes or no to that on the block and have the confidence and not go, well, I got to call my boss and ask him if I got enough money for this, because that doesn't help anybody. So you start setting that up in order, and we've built this where we're doing this now. The dealers come in, and when I first got here, they would wander between lanes. Now, people stand stationary. Hey, I know where the white pickups are going to be, the white vans are going to be, and I know where there's going to be a few others that might blend over, but they're Tories, and Tory's a seller, so I'm going to stay here the whole time. Hey, I'm a repo buyer. I know where all the repo cars are going to go. I'm going to go over there. And we stack them first. And everybody says, well, you always put the best sellers first. Well, they're the best sellers for a reason, because their consistency, their accuracy, they're accurate, and they're transparent. They've built up the trust with me. They built up the trust with their buyers. And now we've got a full circle. That's how you're successful. You don't bring a title. You don't rep your cars. You don't form right. You're not setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up for failure. And then you're like, well, I need loan balance for this car. I need a 5,000. Tory sold this car for 5,000 last week. I got the same one. I should get 6. No, it doesn't work like that. You haven't built up any faith or trust with it.
There you go. That's how you do it, Tory. There's another mic drop moment there, Rich. I mean, you're killing it, knocking it right out of the park. It's crazy.
So what is it you do again?
I transport cars.
So if you're keeping score at home, the over-under, I believe now is 6.
4.
It is not. We're going to go back and work out. I'm going to put a counter on this thing. You know what? We actually we've gained followers from this. People are actually listening to find out how many times you say transport.
Well, I was thinking about it today. Now you kind of got me to the point where I'm not sure I want to talk about transportation again, but I was thinking today, I thought, really it is a very important conversation for anybody that ever watches, listens, hear any of this stuff. And it's an interesting dynamic to see how cars move. I mean, it really is. It's just, and I'm on my 25th year in November, 25 years of transporting cars. And I still look at it and it still just is amazing to me. It's a really interesting, especially dealing with auctions and car dealers. That makes it even more interesting.
If we don't have a car at the auction, we can't sell it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how's that? Okay, so now we are now just getting there in this. I've been around long enough. Dinosaurs roamed when I started this stuff. Cars can now drive themselves to the auction. But when I started this stuff a long time ago, somebody either A, had to drive that car to the auction, or B, it had to get on a transportation truck. I mean, Tesla wasn't around yet and self-driving cars didn't exist. So until that it gets really good, somebody programs my address into their Tesla and brings it to me automatically. We still need the transportation person
Right, but
to
so
bring me the car.
here's kind of been my thought. You heard me say a minute ago. I was like, okay, I think there's going to be a demand. I think there's a demand for physical auction. I think people are hungry for the. I hate that guy, but I see him every week. He always runs me up, but man, we have coffee together, and then we go out in the parking lot. And I tell him I hate him, and we come back again. We do it again, and I mean this back and forth, this relationship. I think there's a demand for it, but I also think, okay, let's go back. I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. Do you guys remember when you would get cars coming in from a completely different state, like by the truckloads, Rich?
Yep. Yep.
And you're like, where did
Absolutely.
they come from and why, what happened? I always want, as the transport guy, Ty, go get those. There's 152 Chryslers at that auction, 3 states away, and we need you to bring them down to here. Hurry up. I don't know what that's about. But
They would they'd find a little hole in the market or a hot spot. What do you want to call it? A honey hole.
right.
Hey, I mean, I remember Chrysler Sebring convertibles are bringing all the money in California, get them all in a truck and get them out there. And then all of a sudden they'd do great for 2 weeks, and then there'd be too many of them, and they'd tank again. And of course, a Chrysler Sebring back in the day, I remember that was one of those cars. It wasn't going to bring squat in the Midwest in the fall, because what's going to happen in the Midwest in the fall? It's going to get cold and it's going to snow. Prices drop. What happens like where we're at in Texas right now in the fall? This is the best time in the world to drop the top, right? We're done with AC. It's time to get cool weather. Everybody wants a convertible. So you move them around to find the markets and say what works. And I mean, those guys used to do it by the, like you said, by the truck.
Right. So this is where it gets really dicey for me. So you say, okay, well, do we really need to do that anymore? Don't we have online auctions now? Do we need to take 174 cars and move them from that state to that state?
Well, go back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast, where we talked about. You said physical auctions are making a comeback. If you're going to be a physical auction, you're going to make a comeback. Nobody's going to transport them 3 states away anymore. They want to buy them where they're at. So if Chrysler Sebrings, and of course they don't make it anymore, but finding your favorite convertible and they're making them and you want to sell them in Texas, you're going to bring them down here if you have a physical presence. I mean, what's the biggest? I'm not on the digital side, but I can only imagine what it's like. I can tell you because I've talked to dealers. What's the biggest hang up when they buy a car off of a digital platform?
There's 2. One is transportation.
Okay.
2 is condition report, CR.
No, you're absolutely right. So transportation is one of the biggest one, and I hear both of those. But it's transportation, and I'll go into a dealership and go, hey, what do you do with those 50 cars back there that look like they're in your bullpen? Oh, we sold those on blah 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 platform. Oh yeah, well you sold them. Well yeah, we're waiting for the transporter. So where's the transporter? And you know the story. Go into it.
Oh yeah, it gets terrible. I don't even want to talk about it. It's terrible. So, so I guess we're coming back full circle. But I think, and I'm thinking of Tory too, really a lot in this conversation because uh, you manage a lot of vehicles. You have a lot of data. I would assume what sells really good in a particular state. What kind of vehicles sell really well in a good state. So next step, even like, okay, let's get really crazy. You want to get crazy? Let's say Tory, a guy like Tory, who has a large inventory, who has a really good relationship with, say, some general manager at some auction in a particular state. Tory knows that there's a lot of inventory over here that might do really well over here, different state. Do you think? I mean, Tori, you're here. I'll just ask you. But would you be more inclined to send the inventory that you've got the data on that will do well over here in a different state with a relationship with a guy that you know? Are you going to be inclined to try to push to move to make that happen, or are you just going to leave it, lay it alone? I don't want to mess with.
So we can dive super deep into that question. From the start, you said brick and mortar auctions are on a comeback. And I always say, what type of industry are we in? We're in the relationship business. We just happen to sell cars. So back to your point, 100%. If I have a good relationship with somebody, I am more than happy to send them cars from further away because it comes back to I trust them that they're going to do the right thing with those cars. They have the right relationship with the buyers. The buyers trust my product. And it goes back to the same thing. Are you going to spend more money on a product you trust or don't trust? And I mean, I sell the same inventory across, all over. And it's so funny how the same exact truck can bring more at this auction compared to this other auction. It's like, what's the consistent difference? It's the relationship and trust those buyers have and our inventory there compared to over here. And it's hard to measure, but when you physically visit the auctions and you have the relationships, you talk to the buyers, you talk to the staff, it's hard to put words into how much that plays into the value.
But I see it as opportunity, which is kind of, we were talking in the beginning about how do you build trust with an auction. As a transportation guy, how do you build trust with, say, an auction or a dealer? And I, as I listen to you talk and I think about all the things that we've probably all experienced in life, I think this is another opportunity to not just, capitalize, but even make that relationship deeper, if that makes sense, because you've now, okay, I'm really stepping out on a limb here. I'm gonna go get all your cars and I'm gonna have them all when they're supposed to be there, but it's gonna be a little tricky. You ready? Okay, yeah, let's just do it. You got my back? Yeah, I got your back. Okay. You get everybody pile on board and you get the job done, every high five, and when it's done, same thing I would assume from the auction to the seller, that relationship. Back to what Rich was just talking about. Okay, well, I'll cover you, buddy, but we're shooting for consistency, accuracy, and transparency. You understand that? And that, to me, it becomes you don't make that happen. Naturally happens over time because you've proven time and time again, I'll take care of you.
No, you're saying that right. So trust is built over consistent actions, positive actions of input. So look at it as a checking account. If you are gonna make a withdrawal or write a check on a checking account, you better have made some deposits. Otherwise, you're writing a bad check. So if we use your example of going back into the guy that wants to sell 25 a week, 100 a month, and he's going to be consistent and he wants all the home runs, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever you said later, he starts sending them back out. He's writing checks on a checking account that has nothing because he's missing the other pieces.
There you go. That's good.
Like if you don't put all those pieces in there. So let's circle this all the way back to the beginning. Tory had an incredible idea. Texts me and says, "Hey, we need to talk a podcast about how do others build up trust with auctions, because we've always talked about how do auctions build trust." So I'm going to send it square at you, Tory. In a nutshell, in your best words, how do vendors, sellers build trust with an auction?
I think it's understanding the auction's limits. So many times, just auctions all around, they are notorious for over-promising and under-delivering or underperforming. So I think it's important as a seller and as a customer of the auction to understand the auction's limits and expectations. Perfect example, Rich, if I really wanted to, I probably could have doubled the sale I had to, if I really wanted to. However, operationally, I don't think that would have put you guys in a good spot. It would have caused more stress and talk about building trust in the team. Your team would have said, yes, I know your team. They're, a bunch of yellows, everything's rainbow and sunshines, but it would have been, yes, we can do it. And then, oh no, we failed. So I think it's important as the seller to understand the expectations of the auction and be okay with that. Rather than getting frustrated, learn to work with their expectations and help them grow. And I think that'll help you out in the long run. So also what you brought back, Rich, is the auctions are run by humans or robots?
Humans.
Humans make mistakes?
No, we're perfect.
Yeah. As a seller, I'll make a mistake. I'll gladly admit, I'll, misfloor a car or miss something on the CR, floor it too high, do something. So understanding, hey, everybody makes a mistake. Yes, I get it. I'm the customer. Is the customer always right, Rich?
No, the customer's not always right.
Man, wrong answer.
You sold me an E. coli cheeseburger today.
That's right. No, but I think it's understanding as a seller is, hey, this is a true partnership. I need them as much as they need me. So, and I think, Rich, you've talked about it, since I've known you, is guess what? We're all here for the same reason. We're all here trying to achieve the same goal. It's just, we have to work together to get there. But I think it goes back to that as a seller, understanding your auction. And for me, all of my auctions operate differently. You have, guess what? Different characters, different people, different colors, I guess, green, yellow, different roles. You have a whole bunch of different people in different roles. It's not a black and white, this is how you become a successful seller at the auction. Every auction is different. And so it's been a challenge for me of trying to find the right way to communicate to the auction, my clear expectations, like we talked about in the beginning, and kind of understanding, hey, what are the limits of my auctions? How do I operate within their limits? And that'll make you the most successful.
If you're the seller out there that says 100 cars are ready for the sale, you better have 100 in the sale, and we're going to sell as many of those as we possibly can. But you don't have any self-awareness, understanding whether or not the auction is capable of producing the numbers you need, bringing enough buyers, parking all the cars, everything goes in there. And you're focused, again, only on the numbers. You got 100 ready, I got 100 available, we're going to sell 100 cars. Okay, now here we go again. You're putting the plans, the products, the processes, and the profits in front of the people. Your perspective that I just heard you say is, look, I'm looking at you as human beings and what are you capable of doing and how are you going to be successful? So you set me up for success. Guess what? In return, I'm able to be successful, get enough dealers in there to spend all the money on the cars we have available, sell them, and then you come back and sell cars next week, and guess what? We do it all over again. Now, what is that? Consistency, accuracy, transparency.
Sitting here listening to Tory, I'm thinking, oh man, this is something that you know, but you don't know. And that is like, wow, what is that auction capable of doing?
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Meet Me at the Gate. I hope the conversations help to fuel your drive and equip you with insights to steer your team towards success. Remember, the road to success is always under construction. And until next time, keep your engines revving and your gas tanks full.